Okay, so with the whole COVID situation and everyone basically just working from home, we're using a lot more data than ever before. And as a result, you get to see a lot of posts like these online. So what's actually going on? Are the ISPs stealing your data? Are they giving you a bit less data than they actually claim to be? Or is it something else? Well, my name is Norbert Dukwai, and in this video, we're going to find out exactly what's happening with your mobile data. Right, so let's get straight into it. Uganda has one of the highest data rates anywhere in the world. And no matter how much you subscribe, it just doesn't seem to be able to get anything done these days. I remember back in 2008 when Obama just became the first black president of America and Africell was still orange, and 3.5 GB per month with them would last the entire month. And not only that, we'd be able to watch YouTube for 6 hours a day and it would still make it pretty close to the end of the month. Well, today I can't use 2.5 GB for a few, let me say an hour or two on YouTube. So what gives? Well, one thing is that while we might think our data habits aren't changing, therefore our data usage shouldn't change, the fact is we're actually using a lot more data than we were before. I mean, think about it. How many hours of YouTube do you spend today versus a few years back? Was Netflix a thing back then? If you watch Netflix or torrents, your data is going somewhere. Not only that, but in the past few years, everything online has become a bit more data intensive as computers get better and faster and can handle a bit more tasks. What happens is the websites have become heavier, filled with all sorts of cool animations that make them look marvelous, a lot of images and videos. All this makes your 1 GB a lot less than what it was a few years back. Kind of like how soda used to be only 300 shillings and now you have to buy it for 1,000 and upwards. So I've been on a journey since pretty much 2014 and I've tried out many different ISPs or internet service provider for the best data solution, searching for the best speeds, the best deals, and trying to slide the scale between value and speed. So I've tried out Africell and Orange, I've tried out MTN, I've tried out Smart, Smile, Vodafone, Leica, all of these. And apart from Leica and Smile, the others have pretty much disappeared from our market. And yes, it is a tough market, but this is not that video. One thing they all have in common, however, is that they're all what we call mobile carriers or mobile ISPs or wireless carriers. All these basically just mean that they give you internet via the cell tower. Now, without getting too deep into how cell phones actually work, what happens is basically with mobile data is your phone connects to a cell tower and that cell tower communicates back and forth. It passes on your phone calls, your text messages, and the data you consume. So it loads for you your Facebook page and all the other places you visit on the internet. But they're not the only type of ISPs there are. They're actually, let me say two, but if we're to break it down further, they're kind of three. So the first one is the one we all know, your Airtel, MTN, and whatnot. But then there's another set of ISPs that are not so commonly known by everyone. And these are what we call the broadband carriers or the wired carriers. These provide you internet via a cable of some sort. And if they don't directly provide a cable to you directly to your house, then they use what we call a last mile point-to-point antenna. So they have a little kind of dish that points to that tower and that gives you the last mile of your internet straight to your home. Now, these are significantly cheaper than your traditional mobile carriers, and this is true for most parts of the world. Wired internet is definitely cheaper and faster in a lot of cases than the wireless one. We're not talking about 5G here or anything of that sort, so it still holds true. Why are the broadband carriers a lot cheaper than your wireless ones? Well, the wireless carriers have basically three reasons why they're very expensive. The first is being that they need to cover a wide area. So you'd be pretty pissed off if you took your phone to your village or wherever you're going and you didn't have network. That would really more than inconvenience you. So to serve you wherever you might go, they put as many towers up as possible. And now these towers cost money. They're so expensive, in fact, that a lot of the carriers actually lease them from companies that make these towers. And then not only that, there's a lot of maintenance that has to go on to these towers to keep them working at all times. And then they also have to buy a spectrum. So think of the spectrum kind of like what happens with FM radio. You know, your radio stations have your 90, 93.3, 91.3, 90, and essentially MTN and Airtel and the rest have to buy out a certain frequency range to serve you on. And reserving this costs money. All these compile to giving us some of the most expensive data prices anywhere. Of course, there's a bit of profiteering going on, but I don't know how much, I don't know the margin, so I can't say. Broadband carriers, on the other hand, they don't cost nearly as much because one, they don't have to cover the biggest possible area, and two, wires are just cheaper. And even if laying down some sorts of cables is more expensive, they still cost a lot less over time compared to your wireless service providers. And in addition to this, cables also have a lot more carrying capacity than, you know, the wireless medium. Take an example. Cable can connect 2 continents with all its inhabitants and pass all their data without any of us feeling a slowdown in data throughput. If we're to do the same for a cell tower, the more people connected to that cell tower, the slower it's going to be because they all have to share its capacity. And this is why even if the wireless carriers gave us unlimited internet, and some still do, they'll usually put a data cap on it. So after a certain amount of data usage, they'll slow you down, right down. Or if they don't do that, they will even slow you down or throttle you during peak hours. So during the day when they know there are many more people on the network, they'll slow down the heavier users. So as you can see, we were never really meant to use mobile data the way we use it in Uganda. We were meant to use it just to keep you connected when you're on the move. But whether you're at work or at school or at home, the best way to get connected to the internet is through Wi-Fi or broadband, which are provided by the wired ISPs. And yes, in Uganda we have all these 3 types of ISPs. So why haven't you heard of the wired ones before? Well, I'm sure you have, and maybe you didn't know what they were exactly, but I'm sure you've heard of them before. And in this video, we're going to go through all of those and go through the packages they offer and try to figure out which one works best for you. Okay, let's start out with Zuku. You know, Zuku, the guys that bring to you Zuku TV. They have their little satellite dishes and they kind of lost the fight to StarTimes. But they were clever and they knew that it wasn't only TV that they could serve you with, but also internet. And then they decided that they would. So enter Zuku Fiber. Now, Zuku Fiber is a wired or purely cable, last time I checked, service provider, which means that they will have to bring a cable to your home from a backbone of some sort and connect you via cable. Now the prices start at around 49,000, and for that you get 10 Mbps and free installation. So they'll come to your house, they'll connect all the wires and give you a free Wi-Fi router, although that was almost always not the best router, pretty cheap, but they do get the job done. Now let's talk about 2 things. That 10 Mbps number. What does it mean? 10 Mbps is basically the internet speed that you'll be getting in your house, and everyone else connected to it, you share that speed. And the bigger that number, the more people your network can support without, you all having to wait for your videos to buffer if you're watching at the same time. And I think 10 Mbps is the sweet spot for 5 to 7 people in a house. You should probably get by just fine with 10 Mbps, so it's a good starting point. The second thing is the price, 149k. That at face value might seem a bit expensive, but if you want to get the full breakdown, stick around to the end of the video or skip to this time and you get the full explanation. Now, one problem with them is that they're quite limited in the coverage. I don't have exactly the list of areas they cover, but from my experience trying to get subscribed to them, it's actually a pain to get connected to them because I live way outside Kampala and they don't really reach that far. Now this is one of the downsides of the wired ISPs. Now the second one we're going to talk about is Simba. Now Simba is similar to Zuku in that they're both purely wired, last time I checked. and the prices start at 110k for 10 Mbps. They, however, charge you 50k for installation and 100k for a router. I would personally skip the router and get my own, since almost all the time ones you buy will be better than what they give you, just because they're trying to save money in some place. But yeah, just like Zuku, the coverage is limited, so if you're in Kampala or very close to Kampala, then you get the services. Outside that, you're fresh out of luck. The next one, Liquid. Now, Liquid is kind of a hybrid ISP in that they give you both a wired connection and a semi-wired connection via those little dishes that I told you about that connect to the tower and give you internet. The prices are a bit different. They start at 20 Mbps at 189k. Now that's quite substantial, but for that price, I still think it's well worth it if you can get it. They charge 120k for installation, and because they're kind of hybrid, I can understand why they have to charge this. You'll notice that the semi-wireless ISPs do charge quite a hefty price for installation because of those towers that they need to set up to give you the point-to-point connection and all that. It's all good, it's still worth it. It's a one-time payment. Along with the 20 Mbps package, you also get a 40 Mbps and a custom one. The prices are all listed on the website if you want to check it out. One issue with these guys is that getting a hold of them is a bit tricky. I mean, even digging through their website is work. You might find that they're not in your area, or if they are, there's often a waiting list because of the high demand for their services. Now, given Zuku has also been facing shortages of routers in recent times, I don't know if they're back in stock. Next up, we have Rogue Telecom. Now, this one I think you definitely must have heard of. You know, the famous Rogue Spot shows up on your phone, try to connect to it and it doesn't really work. Well, they are a real company and the internet does work. Now, they are a purely semi-wireless ISP. And this means two things. They have great coverage, first of all, almost like a mobile carrier, a wireless carrier. And secondly, it means they charge for their installation. In fact, they charge 300k for installation, which is quite up there. Not even DSTV charges that much anymore for installation. And the prices start at 110k also, kind of like Simba. But unlike Simba, it's not unlimited. Basically, all the ISPs I've talked about today, besides Rogue, give you unlimited internet. With that 110k you pay to Rogue Telecom every month, you get 60 GB. Now, this is counted between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. At night, on weekends, and on public holidays, they don't count that at all. But if you do run over your 60 GB before the month is up, you're going to have to subscribe again. So that already is a big deal breaker to me, and for that reason I didn't even consider them when I was looking for my perfect internet solution. Finally, the one I use, it's Optimum, and I hadn't heard about them until about a month ago. Now, they are also like Rogue, and they give you a purely semi-wireless connection, at least as far as I know. Charge 350k for installation, which is by far the most of anyone I've read today. Now, that prices start at 129k, and that's for 5 Mbps. At least for me, it's the best option given where I live. We're only 4 at home, so for us it works quite well. Although, like I said, 10 Mbps is the sweet spot. There you can stream in HD and don't get buffering. If you'd like a full review of my experience, let me know in the comments and I'll do that for you. But so far, so good with them. Of course, they have more packages than the 5 Mbps one. They have a 10 Mbps, 20 Mbps, and I think a couple more. So which one would you pick? Well, your choice might not be your choice at all. Depending on where you live, you might have only one ISP that you can subscribe to, and that's quite a bummer. But if you're living in Kampala or in the thick of it, I would, without having any more details on the company, I'd probably go with Simba just because they are the cheapest. Now, finally, let's round things up and talk about price. I've not mentioned a price that is lower than 100k for 1 month here, and you might think that, well, hang on a minute, that's very expensive. But let's do some calculations. On a typical day, I use about 1.5 GB on my phone and computer, and this is when I'm really trying to behave myself and not watch YouTube all day and do the important stuff. But let's round that up to 2 GB. And the cost per GB on MTN, depending on the price MTN gives you for your My Paka Paka, which is a whole other video, but let's not get into that right now. We're going to set mine at 3,500 per GB. Now, if I use 2 GB in a day, that is 210k per month of data alone, and that's me alone. What about the rest of the family? Now, I'm not saying that all of us use 210k each per month on the internet, because that would be just ridiculous. But even if we accounted for everyone else using different amounts and they don't even give you unlimited internet. Now, okay, you might be saying, all right, no, but we know about Leica. They have pretty cheap internet, and there's no way this is better than that. And okay, yes, let's have a look at that. Leica gives you 100 GB for 50k right now. And while that is great, if you're more than 2 people using it, you find that you struggle to get by more than a week without finishing that internet. And this is exactly what happened to us when the whole family was using it. We had to subscribe 4 times in a month. At that point, I realized that it's quite possibly cheaper to just get unlimited broadband, of which the more you use, the cheaper each GB gets, than hustling with these guys. And I have to say, the anxiety of you almost finishing your data, those messages, you've used 75%, you used 90%. I get none of that. I get simply an invoice at the end of the month and everyone gets to use it. Now, the ideal situation is you supplementing your broadband at home, because you can't take it anywhere, with mobile internet. And quite helpfully, MTN and Airtel have given us the so-called freedom bundles that don't expire. And just a GB of either of those can take me through the entire month. So that brings my total monthly internet cost to about 30,000, which is about 1,000 per day, because we're splitting it between the entire family. The cost per GB per person is absolutely flawed. It's a no-brainer. Well, there you go, guys. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. And if you did, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss when I post videos like this. The links for some of the ISPs, if not all, are in the description as well if you'd like to check that out. And leave me a comment. Which one would you take? Is there an ISP that I didn't mention? Is there a preference? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.